This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. A cattle market update with University of Nebraska-Lincoln livestock economist Elliott Dennis begins today's show. He talks about feeder and live cattle prices and how seasonality could impact slaughter. K-State Extension beef specialist Dale Blasi moves along the show with a preview of what will be discussed at the 25th K-State Beef Stalker Field Day. Ending today's show is Greenwood County 4-H'er and K-State student Lyle Perrier as he discusses his success in the 4-H Livestock Sweepstakes as he earned high overall individual for the second year in a row. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Monday show with the cattle market update. And this week we're joined by University of Nebraska-Lincoln livestock economist Elliott Dennis. Elliott, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Elliott, today wanting to start off our conversation talking about where feeder cattle are at.
Yeah, feeder cattle start the Labor Day have been really kind of middle in the week, and then we've ended on kind of a down note at about 2:30 on the October contract. And really there's just been we're at a level of resistance where we shouldn't be going much lower, but the market's trying to figure out what's going to pull these prices higher into the fall, especially since we generally have a kind of a seasonal decline in the cutout. And so our consumers going to be spending more. So I think some of that's already being passed through. But part of that is also, I think, weaker pasture conditions and kind of an anticipation that we're going to have more feeder cattle brought to the market a little bit earlier and at different times. And so some of that market's being priced in. Generally, we track about 12 different states that make up the feeder cattle index, and all but 2 states had down weeks as far as pricing goes. Volumes were strong, but the exception, one of those was Nebraska. Generally, our 5-6 weights, they've been going down for several weeks, and they rebounded actually quite aggressively to almost $3.40 a pound. So that was a positive here in Nebraska. Our 7-8 weights were kind of leveled out. We had been declining for several weeks at about $2.60. But even at that $2.60 price a pound, we're still at historically high basis levels. So if we look at where we're at in the cash market, where we could be going into the fall, and where we're at in the futures, we're expecting a plus 30 basis. So that's very, very high. And even on our 5-6 weights, we're at about a plus 70, plus 75 basis. So this would be near all-time highs of basis levels. So really just an appreciation that we already have really strong prices to where we're at. And then with the anticipation of kind of further herd rebuilding in the fall or this coming fall and winter, we could have significantly higher prices even in 2025. But one way that we can look at this is we can take kind of what the volatility is in the feeder cattle market, and we can look at kind of where that price level is and look at a lot of options data. And when we kind of can put that together, we get like a price estimate, and we can look at the distribution of prices or the range of what those prices would be. And right now, that 260 price, that's the historical basis plus the futures price, we're about 50%, which means 50% of the time we're probably going to be a little bit higher than this price, and 50% we're probably going to be a little bit lower. So I'd say the market's actually priced pretty accurately right now, and there's not a little downside or upside risk in that. So kind of exactly, I think, where we could potentially be going forward. So really kind of, down overall, but in some areas a little bit more positivity than others.
Elliott, what about the live cattle side of things?
Yeah, the live cattle market was pretty similar. We'll look at the December contract on that, and we were already down $5 a hundredweight on that throughout this week. Resistance is still at 172.75. That was what we would experience back in December of last year. And so I think we still have about $1.50 left that we could go down to meet that resistance level. Now that resistance level is just kind of tends to be a psychological barrier for people. We have to really have something that pushes beyond that. But I think there is a little wiggle room there. And once again, it's what's going to pull that up. And everyone's looking at kind of where the cutout is, what's driving the cutout. And really just kind of this overarching thing is, okay, we've got decreasing feed costs due to a real bumper crop this year on corn, huge amounts of corn that's going to potentially be available. Distillers grains are relatively priced. And so it's going to be a little bit cheaper to hold cattle. Cattle are, in feed yards are pretty full. And so it says, are we going to put more pounds on fewer head? Or are we going to try to really have a lot of throughput? I think packing margins this week will really tell us a lot of that. If we're in the black, then they figure out this way to balance, reduce supplies with kind of increased beef productivity or beef production. And so I think where we kind of go depends on kind of what that balance is and how much demand there's actually for heads of, actual head to be processed.
So really seeing a good combination for cattle producers of lower inputs with higher output prices?
Yeah, I'd say lower inputs and higher weights. And so overall that value can be there, but really we just need fewer of them, for placing or harvesting at higher weights. And to kind of give you an example, we're, about 20 to 25 pounds above where we were at in harvest weights last year and really above our 5-year average. And this year for harvest weights has been really kind of unusual just because it's not followed seasonal trends. But assuming, which is a big assumption, if we were to continue to follow what we normally expect, which is rising harvest weights into the fall for steers, we'd be at about 960 pounds, which would be very, very large. And really where we're thinking about how much to push those feeder cattle or the fed cattle weights up, really I think is going to depend on a lot of those discounts that feedlots are going to start receiving for cattle that are plus 1,000 on the carcass weight.
Are plants able to handle livestock and cattle that large?
Yeah, I think the question is most plants are. The big constraint there is just how high cattle are up from the forest, so rail height. So there is some concern about rail weight, just with how heavy they are and total rail capacity. The real issue is, what type of product do we actually want to eat? And so do we want a huge ribeye or do we want just total pounds? And so I think that's where kind of this push and pull kind of really comes. Yes, we can produce some of the heavier weights, but what is that kind of ideal consumer eating experience? And I think that's why we've seen a lot more push towards that beef on dairy right now, because even though those steers might be a little bit lighter on the carcass, they tend to produce kind of this ideal kind of ribeye size and kind of a better eating experience for consumers. And so I think to move that type of product is a little bit easier. And then with the beef on the dairy cross, then we don't suffer on the quality side. So absolutely, I think there's kind of this kind of changing market dynamic there.
Are you thinking we're going to follow seasonality, Elliott?
I have no real guess on that because it's been such an unusual year when I only can see price or weights going higher when I look at total cattle that are basically over 120 days. We're at about 38% of all the cattle that are on feed have been there for over 120 days, which means we're still holding on to cattle. I think some of that has been just because the choice select spread has been pretty wide. But over the last several weeks, that's been narrowing. And when that choice select spread starts to narrow, that basically means that we're valuing more select product, or that there's not a premium to put more weight on cattle and to basically improve the quality. And quality is really kind of strongly associated with number of days on feed. And so if as that narrows, that's really telling us two things. The first is that we don't need that many animals to be that long. And second is that there's this huge premium out there right now for basically grind or lean product. And so when we're talking about trimmings or beef trimmings that come from fed cattle, it's basically 50% lean. And beef that's coming from, cull cows is 90% lean. And so we kind of mix those two products in a 5-to-1 ratio to get 80-20, that we generally see. And so when there's so much lack of lean product out there, that really kind of incentivizes us to produce more select carcasses. And really, when we look at where that what the cutout value is of a cow right now, a cutter cow, that cutout value is about $290, and so $290 a hundredweight. And if we compare that to where we were at on the cutout for of a carcass is about $310. So almost a cutter cow carcass is almost as valuable right now as a finished steer. So that's where kind of that market's at, and just extremely high prices, and that's incentivizing a lot of pull through. Even though beef cow has really kind of leveled off, beef cow sputters leveled off, we did see a slight tick up in total cow slaughter, but that was really from the dairy cow side. And really what this is really pointing to is that there's just an extremely strong demand for just ground beef and ground products that is really kind of driving that. As we kind of go into the fall, we'll kind of see if that demand continues and whether consumers are willing to pay higher prices for things such as simple as ground beef.
Elliott, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and give us our cattle market update.
Thanks for having me.
That was University of Nebraska-Lincoln livestock economist Elliott Dennis. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show previewing the K-State Beef Stalker Field Day with K-State Extension Beef Specialist Dale Blasi. Dale, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Shelby.
Dale, as this is the 25th K-State Beef Stalker Field Day and the 20th anniversary of the K-State Beef Stalker Unit, on September 26th, as this day gets kicked off at 9:30 with registration and coffee, and then 10 a.m. with introductions, at 10:15 you give us a look back and maybe what we might see moving forward for the Beef Stalker Unit.
Yes, Shelby, it's just a short 15-minute view back in time just to show how we basically repurposed the existing range unit into what is today known as the KSU Beef Stalker Unit. And again, looking forward, we're excited about the new feedlot, feed mill, and metabolism facilities that are in plan to be developed here and actually built here in the coming year. So we're incorporating both of our animal units together to provide a full system view for both students and for research alike. And we're excited about the future for our Kansas State University Animal Science Department and what we can provide to our industry as well as, and more importantly, to our students.
And this field day has been going on longer than the unit has been around. So how did that work out, Dale?
Well, just a quick story. I was relocated in 1997-98 to K-State from Hutchinson, Kansas, and was given the responsibility of building an educational program in stalkers and continued and built basically a statewide stalker conference. And over time, the higher-ups identified a need for K-State to have the capabilities to generate good producer-useful information. And through the wisdom of my prior leadership, they allowed the stalker unit to come into being. And here we are today, 20 years later.
And after your presentation, Dale, Glenn Tonser.
Yes, Glenn's a superstar in my book for sure. Glenn, as in years past, he's going to kind of lay out what the outlook is for our beef cattle industry. Of course, we hear about the historic cow herd numbers and recent information regarding how quickly or not as quick our cow herd is rebuilding. And this all has implications for our backgrounding and our stalker cattle producers. And so Glenn will touch on this issue, and I'm sure others as well. But he will, as he always does, delivers first-rate factual information that folks can reflect on, and he's very personable and takes his questions well, and I think a lot of people come away with more information as a result of what he presents.
And after that, a panel discussion.
Yes, the producer panels have been a strong component of the field day. I mean, the field day is for producers to come and see what we're doing at K-State, to observe our facilities, and it's a producer event. And what makes more sense than to have producers that are actually in the trenches doing the work? And this year, the program we're looking at is this phenomenon of beef on dairy opportunities and challenges. And this beef on dairy thing has slowly and steadily been growing over the last couple years, and could have implications on our stocker segment in terms of how people work with this particular hybrid animal. And so I brought in 3 folks that are right in the middle of this particular aspect of our industry. And so an opportunity to hear their thoughts and have, again, that question-answer format that's actually moderated by a good old friend of mine, Wes Ishmael, who was formerly with Beef and is now the editor for the Hereford World.
And maybe not the most important part of the day, but something that is valuable to people, lunch will be served.
Well, of course, we can't do that. And we do send people when they come for the event, and certainly when they leave in the evening, we make sure they're filled up. We've got our brisket lunch as well, and it'll be served straight up about 12:30 after the conclusion of the producer panel.
And what presentation takes place after lunch?
Well, a presentation, an old veterinarian, PhD DVM, Joe Diedrichson, probably knows as much about coccidiosis as anybody today. Joe is working with Huva Pharma, who happens to be our primary sponsor for this year's event. We certainly appreciate Huva Pharma for being a part of this special day to us. Joe's going to speak on the whole aspects of coccidiosis, and that's something that you don't think much about, but certainly time and time again it tends to rear its ugly head. And so it's probably a good thing for producers to be aware of it, to catch it as soon as possible, and minimize any negative impacts on the productivity of their animals.
At 2 o'clock, who's doing the next presentation?
Dr. Dan Thompson. He's the CEO of PAC Vet Group, the Production Animal Consultation Group, a dominant veterinary group in our Kansas backgrounder, stocker, and feedlot world. Dan's a former faculty member in our College of Veterinarian and a good close personal friend of mine. And I've asked Dan this year to come in and talk about recommendations for managing calves the first 30 days on feed. Dan's unique in that he has a DVM, but he also is a PhD. He is a PhD-trained nutritionist. So Dan's one of these rare hybrids that can look at it from both the perspective of nutrition as well as animal health.
Dale, the last 2 speakers then, people from K-State's Department of Animal Sciences and Industry.
Yeah, that's one thing, Shelby, that's really special about K-State is the critical core, critical mass of folks that I've been surrounded with over the last 30, 35 years, and this year's colleagues this year are no different than any in the past. And certainly Justin Wagner, a colleague of ours from Garden City, Kansas, he's going to speak on future trends in the cattle feeding industry. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about in terms of the size of these calves as they're being marketed, long-term implications, and certainly what it looks like down the road, especially with this herd size question that's in the air. And then finally, a fellow colleague here on campus, Dr. Casey Olson. Casey's going to hit and visit about rethinking pasture burning plans, save time, save money, and improve range conditions. Last year, I teamed up with him. It was his lead project, but we looked at burning different times of the year, and it was a significant investment by the university to basically dedicate the pastures at the stocker unit for a 6-year project. And I think there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that Casey and his team revealed through their research, and it's something that our producers need to hear.
Throughout the day, will there be posters up where people can learn more information about other research projects that have taken place?
You know, we do a lot of things at the stocker unit. I mean, we talk about research and we have the field day, but we employ, and as of right now, we have 7 undergraduate students that are working at the stocker unit, and that's something that could be said across the board for all of our animal units, is that our facilities, but by virtue of being so close to campus, they're able to attend classes, and we encourage that, of course, but also spend time and pick up and learn practical skills that help them be more knowledgeable and appreciative of the hard work that our producers do on a day-to-day basis. We also have our graduate program, and our graduate students are conducting work, and those posters will reveal the work that has been going on this past year.
And Dale, sticking to your word that you don't want to send people home hungry, what's the last thing that wraps up the day?
Well, the one thing that we do that wraps up the day, Shelby, is we have what we call a cutting bull's lament, and basically it's prairie oysters, good old-fashioned call hall ice cream, lots of food. People, upon the conclusion of the day, I'm an extension specialist, and one thing I appreciate is the importance of producers to interact with one another. It's one thing to come to a conference and sit down and listen to the talking heads throughout the day, but there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom to be gained by both our younger producers that are there, as well as the guys that see one another yearly at the KLA conventions and everything. This is an opportunity to visit, pick up intelligence that is relevant to them, talk to people they trust, and so it's just a kind of a wrap-up mini social before the end of the day.
What does registration look like for the Beef Stocker Field Day?
We routinely see around 300 people, and I'm hoping, because this is such a special year, that we're going to see more folks. We're getting the word out, but we need to get people pre-registered, because we're always making that decision on how much brisket to get cooked. But we have a deadline on September 13th. That's September 13th. And certainly go to ksubeef.org, ksubeef, one word, .org, or call Miss Katie at 785-532-1267. That's Katie at 785-532-1267.
And registration is $25 if on or before September 13th. However, after that, can people still get registered?
And if people don't get registered, they still can show up at the door. And I realize harvest season, this is a real tough time of the year for folks with rain coming and getting wheat in the ground, especially for those folks that are down in south central Kansas. But it's really a cheap investment. You're going to spend more money on gas getting here than you will for registration. And for those folks that have been coming all these years, I really do appreciate it. Your support and attendance means a lot to our program and certainly to our department.
Dale, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Shelby.
That was K-State Extension Beef Specialist Dale Blasi. I will put the link in today's show notes on agtoday.net if you'd like to learn more information or get registered. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Monday show taking the time to recognize the 2024 Kansas 4-H Livestock Sweepstakes High Individual, Lyle Perrier. Lyle is a Greenwood County 4-H'er and is currently at Kansas State University studying animal sciences and industry. Lyle, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Lyle, this is actually your second year winning this, so congratulations on that. And as you've had a lot of experience, I'm sure, in the Livestock Sweepstakes competition, can you walk us through it a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you. I have been very involved within the Livestock Sweepstakes for a number of years. I think I've probably competed in it 6 or 7 times. And for me, it's my favorite contest. I've been involved in competitions through both 4-H and FFA, and the Sweepstakes contest is just so unique because it allows you to compete in a range of competitions, and then it's extremely cool how Kansas puts them all together to one award.
And what's one of your favorite competitions within the sweepstakes?
Yeah, that's a tough question. My coach always made us rank our favorite contests prior to the competition, and I would say every year it was a different one, and that was kind of just dependent on which one I was kind of chasing that year. So I really can't tell you one. It went from meats to Skillathon to Quiz Bowl to livestock. So I love them all, and I don't think I can choose one that's my favorite.
And was this your last year of competition for the sweepstakes?
This was my last year. I think I could technically be involved in 4-H one more year, but I'm ready to move on, and this was my last year in the sweepstakes.
Lyle, you're also a student here at Kansas State University in Animal Sciences and Industry, and how has the work you've put into the Livestock Sweepstakes transferred over into your college education?
Yeah, for sure. That's a thing that I think is the most valuable, whether it's transitioning to college or that information transitioning to your future career. These contests are so broad, they do a phenomenal job of setting you up with a wide range of knowledge and information. And so I've already seen there's, in some of my classes, there's just stuff that I've uniquely learned through studying for sweepstakes, whether it's equipment information and breeds through Skillathon or meat ID stuff. All of it transfers extremely well. So the contests are designed in a way that it's actually practical information. So I appreciate that a lot.
And if there's other 4-Hers who think, wow, this sounds really cool, what do you recommend they take the time to do?
Yeah, I would say I would recommend competitions through 4-H and FFA for anyone. I think that's like, for me, that was what I was most involved in through these programs. And so I would tell you, firstly, just find a way to get involved within them by entering. And I was very blessed to have phenomenal coaches through my time. And not everyone has that, but talk to your parents and reach out to your extension agents, and they'll be more than willing to help you get entered within the sweepstakes contest and just build on it year after year, and it makes a huge difference.
What are you excited for the future of agriculture and livestock?
Yeah, I think we're at a unique time within the livestock industry. There's certainly a lot of change occurring right before our eyes, but I think that the young people are going to continue to be passionate and willing to make changes to place us where the livestock industry and Kansas livestock industry remain at the forefront in a changing world. So I'm just excited for new challenges, new changes, and ultimately new opportunities.
Lyle, obviously still in college, but post-college, what's the dream opportunity?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have a concrete plan on my future. My family has a Angus cattle operation, and I think that's ultimately my end goal, but I would like to find myself within a career within the livestock industry for a period of time after college. I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but I've got some options and things I would love to do.
Lyle, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was Lyle Perrier, who is the 2024 Kansas 4-H Livestock Sweepstakes High Individual from Greenwood County. Lyle is currently at Kansas State University studying animal sciences and industry. If you'd like to check out the other results from the Kansas 4-H Livestock Sweepstakes, I will link them in today's show notes on agtoday.net, or you can navigate trying to find them by going to www.asi.ksu.edu. That's all we have for you today on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you on Tuesday.